In its own way, it is heaven on earth. A patch of Ireland of such beauty, such tranquility, it hints at the hand of a divine gardener. But at Glenstal Abbey, County Limerick, home to Ireland's only order of Benedictine monks, nothing is exactly as it seems. The Grand Abbey itself is a fake, a Disneyland version of a Gothic castle built just 80 years ago, complete with phony sentry. The monks of Glenstal live as pious and reflective a life as one would imagine, committed to prayer and to God. But they are monks with a mercenary streak, in whom the commercial spirit moves strongly. Already they've released a best-selling CD of Gregorian chant. This year it's a small prayer book which is currently racking up unholy sales. Their Dublin publisher, Brian Lynch, has never seen anything like it.
If you were to be told that a prayer book coming from a small rural community of monks in Ireland is going to sell the bones of, well, hopefully 100,000 copies, primarily in Ireland, I don't think any market research is going to tell you that.
The man with the plan was Father Peter, who runs the Abbey gift store. He noticed strong sales for an English prayer book.
And I said, you know, it's a pity we have to have an English prayer book.
He said, wouldn't you produce one? Wouldn't we have one of our own? He said, wouldn't you do something useful for a change, you younger monks, you see? So I said, OK, I'll try. So I got a committee together of 5 other monks, more learned than myself, and a woman.
Watching them, you know, and everybody coming with their own aspect of prayer, or their own prayer baggage, if you'd like to say it, or whatever. But and we're all fighting our corners. Do you know, I think it should be this, I think it should be that. You know, so in the beginning there was nothing there. There was a carte blanche. It was an empty book, do you know, an empty page. And what are we going to do?
What Noreen Nirian and the Glenstal monks did was produce a handy pocket-sized book of great beauty, featuring some of these images from the Abbey's icon chapel. The prayer book showcases Christianity's ancient devotions.
Steer the ship of my life, good Lord, to your quiet harbour, where I can be safe from the storms of sin and conflict. Show me.
It gives readers prayer stops throughout the day. It honours the old language of worship.
Direction in which I should go, and give me the strength and the courage to choose the right course, even when the sea is rough and the waves are high, knowing that through enduring hardship and danger, we shall find comfort and peace.
Most significantly, the book powerfully reminds Irish readers of their Celtic roots, their pre-Christian spirituality, manifest in the power of nature. Celtic scholar Father Sean.
The Celts believed in this idea of this concept of nacht. There's no English translation for the Gaelic word, but it really means something like dynamism, power, and you could find God in the trees, in the woods, in the changing seasons. Wherever you were, this divine power was going to everything. It was what we call theologically the immanence of God, that God was very near. Whereas, generally speaking, in the rest of the church, both east and west, it's the transcendence of God which is emphasized, that God is very far away, very distant.
The Irish prefer their culture, like their God, to be close, worn on the sleeve. Just as traditional Irish music and dance emerged from the soul rather than imposed from above, so Irish believers put their faith in folk prayers. Short, humble prayers which belong to ordinary people. The prayer book has resurrected the folk prayer.
They're meant to be said at various times of the day and various occasions, like getting up in the morning, going to bed at night, when you see the sun, when you see the moon, when you pass by a graveyard, when you're out in the sea sailing, when you're milking a cow, all this kind of thing.
And the spirit of these folk prayers is in the prayer book?
It is, yes, yes.
After 1,500 years, the Benedictine order is as strong as ever. Each monk takes, among others, a vow of stability. But the curious thing is, these are not stay-at-home monks. They travel far and wide, and that's very expensive.
Salaries that is our biggest expenditure in the whole place, obviously. That's salaries,
Bursa
wages,
Father Simon carries the weight of Glenstal's finances on his shoulders. The Abbey and attached secondary school cost more than £500,000 a year to run.
That is the big number.
The budget is tighter than ever. Today, even the communion wine is under scrutiny.
Of which a significant portion is altar wine, I discovered. Altar wine costs us almost £6 a bottle, which seems to me we should be it's slightly on the high side.
The Oxford movement in England, a romantic medieval revival, led to a spate of conversions of Anglican clergymen.
While prayer book royalties are helping put bread on the table, each member of this cloistered community contributes what he can, displaying talents both wondrous and varied. There's Brother Kieron, an internationally acclaimed woodturner. The 300 or so bowls sculpted each year in his workshop from cherry wood, ash, beech and walnut reap many thousands of pounds and spark frenzied bidding at internet auctions. Father Brian runs the dairy and tends the milking herd. There's the chart-topping chants, and unlikely as it seems, hit musicals. The brothers' lyrics have already laid them in the aisles at Limerick. Next stop, Broadway. The one disappointment so far, popular fiction.
They tried to write a steamy novel. They thought this would be a period piece. So they had a historian, a monk was a historian, and one or two lay people because we couldn't fill in all the bits on the steamy novel.
There must be women. I mean, there were definitely women in there, surely.
No, there was no woman in that particular audience, in that particular cast. I think that's why it didn't work. It never came to fruition.
But dreams of solvency persist. Among the more creative money-making schemes was Father Simon's plan for large-scale honey-making. But Ireland's cold turned the bees sluggish. He found the solution, but was handicapped by his own vocation, a niggling matter of morality, standing between the entrepreneurial monk and his profit.
I often thought there's a good story that if you put a drop of holy water into a barrel of ordinary water, it all becomes holy. So I thought if I imported a barrel of New Zealand honey or Australian honey, which is very plentiful and quite cheap, and I poured in a jar of Glenstal honey, the whole thing would be Glenstal honey, you know. And I thought that'd be, well, yeah. I passed that by one of our sort of moral theologians. I didn't think that was, no, that wouldn't pass the ethical standards of the monastery.
Do you think you may be in danger of becoming worldly?
There is every possibility of that already having taken place.
There's no doubt the Catholic Church in Ireland, religion's establishment, is fighting to regain credibility and spiritual authority. By contrast, Glenstal Abbey is a community without hierarchy, offering connection to God without the trappings of religion. The prayer book is proving a tool more useful in the search for God than a priest.
I think that's probably one of the things about the prayer book too, is that you can actually take this up and know that you're connecting with a community that is live and that is vibrant and that believes in prayer and is actually doing that prayer.
The prayer book wasn't designed to bypass the church, yet the monks of Glenstal Abbey, by staying faithful to the Benedictine traditions, have played something of a spiritual trump card. Prayer, work and respect for harmony and the rhythms of nature. Brother Anthony, keeper of the 10,000-year-old oak forest, sees it as keeping to the basics.
It is very wonderful just to come back to these origins, to see God's work, because we humans are inclined to be very limited. We either have missionary zeal or religious zeal, or we're moralistic. I always think moralism is a poor substitute for prayer, and it's the last refuge of a dying faith when you start blaming others for not behaving as you think they should.
For this year at least, thanks to a small book of prayer that struck a chord with the Irish people, the monks of Glenstal Abbey can count on robust spiritual and financial health.
It has effectively put us in the black for this year. The difficulty is I met the accountants this morning saying, this is a one-off for this year. Yeah. What will be like this time? Next year, we don't know.
Volume 2.
Volume 2, How to Pray by the monks of Glenstal. Yes, okay. We'll try.